Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another live commentary of Deadliest Warrior. We took kind of like a hiatus from this since October, which no, November. Since November, where we wrapped up season 2 of Deadliest Warrior live commentary. It's now the new year. We took a break for December so I can concentrate on like Christmas related films to review and wrap it up with like Matrix Resurrections and Spider-Man No Way Home and all the other Spider-Man movies that I was building up towards for reviewing. You can check all that out on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/talkativecarl. Follow me in the links in the descriptions if you want to check all that stuff out, and follow me on my Twitch where I play all kinds of games. Follow me on my Twitter so you'll know when I'm live. And of course, if you want to further support the channel, you can definitely check out my Patreon, which the link is in the description. And right now, we're beginning episode 1 of the final season of Deadliest War, which is George Washington versus Napoleon Bonaparte. Two of the most iconic generals in history. And oddly enough, fun fact, their time frame wasn't that too much of a stretch. I think by the time Napoleon was like on the rise or at his height of infamy, it was around that time when George Washington was, later into his presidency, and eventually he passed, and then like it was Napoleon Bonaparte actually raised like I believe like a toast or made a speech, giving props to George Washington as a leader. So even like game recognized game. I could be misremembering that, but that's pretty much like the in a nutshell that they're not too far apart in terms of time frame. They could have easily fought one on one, not one on one, but it's like army on army kind of fight realistically. One of the few instances in the series that two warriors could have easily met in time and actually went head to head. So anyway, get your timestamp to 0. If you're watching this on Amazon Prime, go ahead to season 3, episode 1, George Washington versus Napoleon. Oop, bumped my mic. Just need to adjust my seat. I mean, this is usually how I sit when I'm playing video games live, so I never brought that up when I started this watch along. So just a little tidbit. By the way, once I eventually get this wrapped up, that frees up more time for me to do more movies and TV shows to review later down the line in the year, because I'm pretty sure it's not too long of a season, and I already did the last episode of this season for October, which was Vampires versus Zombies. I did not want to wait an entire year to do that for October. October was already around. I might as well just throw that one in. So anyway, so it's going to be a pretty short thing. So I'm pretty sure by March, I believe I'll be wrapped up. So anyway, get your timestamp to 0. Get ready to press play when I say now. In 3, 2, 1, now. Grande Armée. Yeah, 20 ways apart from each other. Well, they technically were still alive, but just I think Napoleon was younger uh, you know, when George Washington was in his later years. The God of War. Can you imagine they made a video game uh, based off the exploits of Napoleon? Yeah, by this point, like this is like when they got down to these the experiments and the tech that they used to test the experiments. This is like at their height at this point. A far cry from what we've seen from season one, and they made like the X factors more of a big deal in this season because they do play a crucial role in like the winners and losers, as you will see in the upcoming episodes. It's crazy how certain generals in history that are like the more famous and infamous generals in history, we utilize their tactics in warfare. I mean, like Napoleon, by and large, he was exiled for for his I guess he kind of like treason, I believe. But he pretty much like his own country kind of exiled him. He didn't execute him like normally probably would have. But I'm pretty sure he wasn't looked favorably back then. Uh, but it's surprising how much of his warfare tactics are still studied. No more Max. Just a inside tip, like Max Greiger, kind of like I don't know, he kind of like forced some information about himself that kind of like caused him to leave the show. Like it's something similar to what this guy turns out to be. Like he's supposed to be like has some kind of army you know background, military background, something like that. But that was forged too, or at least not forged, but kind of like he kind of lied. I guess they had to continue the show. I don't know when they would have found out, but I'm pretty sure they would have not allowed him on before the show start. You know, being filmed. You know, I've been binge watching some Yu-Gi-Oh GX for the next TV show review, season two Yu-Gi-Oh GX, and there is a new character they included called Bonaparte, and he has a dueling deck that's pretty much based off of like somewhat of Napoleon's thing. Like, you know, he's short. I mean, in real life, like you mentioned, he wasn't really that short in real life. He's like a just average height, but people just over time spread this kind of propaganda and then jokes that he was always been like this short stature kind of guy, and had like this. That's why you get the title Napoleon complex. That the short people had like big, you know, little fuses that they erupt and just to compensate because of their short stature. Uh, uh, but yeah, in the I'm going to talk about when I talk about the TV show. Don't know if it's going to be this week or, but it's definitely some point next week. I'll talk about season two, and he has an interesting deck, but I kind of wish it was fleshed out more. He didn't duel more than just that one time though. But he has like little toy soldiers that look like, you know, Napoleon's soldiers, or at least they're outer wear they would have worn their military uniforms and stuff like that, even with the hats and all that stuff. I mean, like if you, I mean, we all at some point in, if not high school, definitely middle school, learned about like George Washington and Napoleon in history. And if you recall, Napoleon, you know, they mentioned in the show that he kind of overextended himself. That's why he ended up losing and then eventually getting exiled because unlike George Washington, you know, who learned how to take care of his men, Napoleon, I don't know, he's called himself the God of War. I don't know if he called himself, but I think other people called him the God of War. It seems like he just, you know, wants to like just conquer. Is the, you know, the difference between like a defender and then a conqueror. These cannons are awesome. See, this is like I still think that we should have like made like a, you know, a Deadliest Warrior game based off the modern warriors or modern esque warriors, but just in like the form of a Call of Duty format, and just include these like, you know, characters like SWAT or Jesse James, and have like George Washington and Napoleon be like DLCs, and just utilizing their rifles and like have some kind of special move where they fire their cannons and like blast apart the opponent, something like that. How funny it is to just play as Napoleon George Washington. Oof. Jesus, getting hit by that thing ain't no freaking joke. Luckily, it's not like that. This is not timed, because you have to take your time and do this properly in order to get these cannons to fire at all. You know, fun fact: One of the guys who helped with the crew serve of these cannons is also one of the experts in a later episode that we'll probably do next month of the expert for Theodore Roosevelt, because he has a Gatling gun, and he takes care of a lot of uh, crew serve Gatling guns. So it looks like he also knows how old old school cannons operate. I still got a little bit of the Mike's Hard lemonade still. I didn't even finish it off. I didn't even finish the case off. There's only 6 bottles in a case. I didn't even finish them off for New Year's. I still had like 2 left. Well, I think I only had like one before New Year's, 2 on New Year's Eve, and then like every other day I have like, well, at least a couple of days later I have another. So it's like this is like I still got one left in the refrigerator. Also, fun fact: the whole term of inoculation and immunization all started with George Washington and his the nurses on his battlefield, that like all his soldiers, because they in like a new world, not used to certain diseases and what have you, had to be immunized. They had to be old school vaccinated. Otherwise, they would die. So, father of a country pretty much brought to the world immunization. At least helped. He didn't invent it, but he helped, made it like a perpetual thing. And like stressed the importance of it. Whoa, right down the barrel. That was like an impressive shot. I always get impressed. I mean, George Washington, given like what I learned from history, he was pretty creative when it comes to trying to win at warfare. I mean, he took down one of the biggest military forces of the time, the British, just with he did a lot with a little, which is impressive. Mm. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like just with the look at the design, like one of the Napoleon experts even mentioned about the design of the cannon. It's like, as you can see, most of George Washington's cannons were made from church bells, which is like a very crude way of making a cannon. He made it work, but as you can see from the test, it's like the level of damage by comparison to Napoleon, who actually had cannon which were forged the proper way from the proper materials, does didn't do as great as the properly made cannon. It's always fun to see like these weapons that by and large haven't been used in hundreds to probably centuries. Well, 100 is a century. You know, hundreds, probably thousands or so years being brought to use even for testing just to see how they operated. Because usually you see these kind of things in museums, but it blows your mind just to see, no pun intended, it just blows your mind just to see these you know archaic weapons being put into function, how deadly they were. Even more so, some of them are even more so deadlier than the weapons we have even today. If you remember the Moquito, because I don't think the video was uploaded because of the whole copyright thing, but that Zonde Warrior versus the Aztec jaguar, the Aztecs maquito was pretty much this long flat club with obsidian, jagged blades, you know, uh, kind of going around the edges, and it's pretty much like a hacking rather than regular cut, which is more dangerous of a cut and hard to put together or heal. And then certain like the musket round bullets are even more deadlier than the bullets that are jacketed today. There goes the commander. They're kind of right in half. Holy crap. They're like, from the old west further back in time when when gunpowder was first invented, these kind of guns made you have to be extremely accurate because how long it takes to reload a lot of these guns. You got to make the shots extremely count because they didn't have rapid reload at the time. I mean, like the 6 round uh, 6 shooter, and then like they're repeating like 18 Henry and like in Winchester, like excluding those, most weapons, further back are just like, 1 round kind of thing. I like the attention to detail. You got the old school American flag because, you know, uh, the flag that we know had more stars as time went on. I don't know when they changed it. I can't recall. I think it had to be somewhere around maybe. I could be wrong. It's somewhere between either WWE 1 or 2 where they changed the number of stars on the flags. I'm only 60 to 70% sure it's WW2. And I wish we had something like this, like the war table or touch table that they used to see what the battle strategies, how they were planned out. I wish we had this in the previous seasons just to utilize like the other warriors' strategy and tactics, on the battlefield of their time. And you might see some overlap because by and large, this, you know, after so many wars and skirmishes over the years since like civilization even began, uh, people by and large utilize certain tactics that mirrors another, or at least they come up with the same thing, but probably call it something different. Yeah, and this is another thing I like to see, like Dave Becker uh, making a lot of these weapons. You usually the blades that you see in the show. I never knew where they find like the modern weapons that they use for the modern warriors, like the assault rifles. They had to, get them from somewhere, like legit, obviously, possibly from like, you know, some one of those kind of like not comic cons, but like those cons for like weapons, like the NRA people bring, uh, or at least something to that effect, where you can like legally acquire certain weapons in order to utilize like explosives and like other gunfires, guns to utilize for the test. I never knew how they acquired those. It's primarily a thrusting with a saber. I mean, Colas Marn. I mean that's brilliant on Washington's part. Like, he utilized he have a he made sure that he had a sword specifically created, even though it only does thrusting. He still utilized it to be able to parry sabers, which he had experience dealing with more than once. So it's pretty smart on his part. I don't know how often the bait and bass even works to in today's standards. I mean, that cover of fog just added to just the luck that brought Napoleon the win he needed in that Pacific battle in history. I mean, like against the Russians. I mean, I'm not even sure how that was even possible for them to get fooled by something like that. Like, shouldn't like generals, if you suspect somebody, an opposing army is going to surrender, then you should be making sure, like, proceed with caution kind of situation. Maybe it was the folly of that particular general on the Russian side to, you know, like, oh yeah, we got this. Who needs to double check? So he pretty much, played himself and not bothered to, like, have some people, wings in case this is like turns out to be like a trap, come rain hell down on these people kind of situation. You pretty much like shot your load, and now you pretty much lost against this particular general. So it's like I'm just shocked. I don't think any realistic, unless the general is that of an arrogant prick to assume that, oh, he's surrendering, so why don't I just bring out all my team just to be slaughtered or potentially slaughtered without a kind of plan B in case. Okay, here we go. The Grand Armée. Ooh, right in the gut. Right in the head. You say vichyssoise? It's vichyssoise, sir. It's supposed to be code. It's supposed to be code. Jesus, it is pretty doggone close. Napoleon ain't no joke. I mean, but yeah, Napoleon's like. I mean, George Washington's very good with his creativity on the battlefield. One of the reasons why he probably you know became like the one of the famous leaders in history. Yeah, well, that is episode 1, season 3, Deadliest Warrior, George Washington versus Napoleon. Yeah, I mean, like, uh, when I first saw this, I was like half hoping for George Washington to win. It should make more sense for George Washington to win, but uh, it still shocks me how close that was as far as like percentage wise, because 49% of the time Napoleon did beat George Washington in the simulation, and it's like out of the 5,000 battles they ran, and yeah, I mean it's mostly because of the kind of the logistics Napoleon had in like well, they both had like fair bit of training, but like, one had the finances and resources to have the logistics that they need to fight on the battlefield, while Washington had to scrap and scrounge. But somehow he managed, well, not somehow, because of the way he leads his people, made him like an effective general, then president. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this episode, because did it make sense to you? Do you disagree? Like, do you think actually Napoleon should have won that one? But yeah, next video. What's next? Next video will be Joan of Arc versus William the Conqueror, another medieval knight type of fight. So look forward to that. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl. Follow me in the links in the description, and I will see you guys soon. Peace.